And today I have got the pleasure of introducing John Rubino. John Rubino has every initial that you can imagine: SHRM-SCP, CCP, CGBP, GRP, WLCP. And he is the president and founder of Rubino Consulting Services, an HR consulting company. He's done a lot of stuff for us. He's going to be doing an upcoming class on compensation metrics on March 10th, certification, and which will offer a 20% discount. I'll give you a link later on. Just a couple of quick things. There's resources here. So if you want a PDF of the slideshow that we're going to be showing, it's down in the resources. Additionally, if you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A. We'll save a few moments for Q&A towards the end. So with that said, John, thank you for being here. I look forward to this, and take it away.
Thanks a lot, Blake. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for attending our session today. As Blake mentioned, I am doing two certification programs on base pay metrics, compensation metrics, and the development of base pay programs, really total cash compensation programs. So our objective today, I'm just going to do some highlights of what we dive deeper into in our 2 weeks together starting on March 10th. And we will have room for some questions at the end of the presentation. I always begin all compensation assignments, and I recommend you do the same, with objective statements. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I do want to highlight the two most important. We want our compensation programs to be both internally equitable and externally competitive. And I will expand on that in the next slide. And you see the other important compensation objectives. Another big one, and really our mantra when it comes to compensation programs, is we want to be able to attract, retain, and motivate a high caliber workforce. And reward mechanisms such as base pay and variable pay assist us in making sure that we capture the best and brightest within our organization. I consider these basically generic objectives. My recommendation to you is to take these statements and align them more specifically to your own organization. Here is our methodology that, again, I expand upon in our certification programs on building a base pay structure. First, we start with analyzing our jobs. We find out what our employees are doing on a day-to-day basis. Odds are, if you're already working for an established organization, the big job analysis exercise has already been done for you. However, everything changes, as you know. The external environment, your organization also evolves. You may have a department where it's not running as efficiently as it should. This would warrant an additional job analysis exercise to make sure the jobs are defined in the most efficient and productive manner as possible. And the interrelationship of your jobs within that department makes sense. After you analyze your jobs, we put all of that information into a standardized format, and we call that job documentation. And the most typical form of job documentation is the traditional job descriptions. As you know, job descriptions are very important for us from both an internal analysis point of view as well as an external competitive point of view. After we have our job descriptions, which show our jobs consistently and how they are written, so it makes it easier to compare one job to another. After that's done, it's time to evaluate our jobs. And we evaluate our jobs from two perspectives. From an internal point of view, we call that job content emphasis, as well as an external point of view. That's that internal equity and external competitiveness I talked about previously. So you see the two avenues that we need to walk down. You walk down the market data emphasis. Market data takes the primary position in how you define your jobs in the organization. Then you fold in your internal analysis, your job content evaluation. And we have specific methodologies to help us do that, which of course I expand upon in our certification programs. You walk down the job content emphasis, your internal relationship of jobs take the primary position, then you fold in market data. You may be wondering why we have to make this decision with these two avenues to walk down. And the answer to this is very simple. Whenever we talk about the market is pure supply and demand. And of course, the more demand there is for something and the less supply, that brings up the price of whatever it is we're talking about. This is applicable to goods and services, and it's also applicable to the price of jobs. The market is pure supply and demand. The market has no values. The market doesn't care about pay equity. The market doesn't care about not discriminating. The market, again, pure supply and demand. Now, contrast that to your organization. Your organization has values. Your organization cares about pay equity. It cares about not discriminating. This is why how you view a job internally will never be 100% equated to how the market actually pays that job. This is why, from a strategic point of view, I advise my clients to decide which avenue is going to take the primary position, the market or internal equity. Now, both components, of course, are important. It's just a matter of primary position and the emphasis that you need to take. Now, in reality, most organizations around the world do choose the market data emphasis approach, particularly in highly competitive industries. However, I do have clients in the United States and all around the world where their internal evaluation of job takes the primary position over the market pricing. Either way, we need to reconcile how we view the jobs internally and how the market actually pays that job. We can reconcile using quantitative techniques such as regression analysis. And again, we talk about that in depth in our certification programs. Or you can reconcile just using your professional judgment. This reconciliation, by having a strategic approach, allows you to have consistency in the end result in how you value and view your jobs from both the internal point of view and the external point of view. After you do this reconciliation, you have created what we call the job worth hierarchy. This is the array of all of your jobs from high to low, based on both how you view the jobs internally and how the market actually pays those jobs. Then we flesh out our job worth hierarchy. We add grades, we add midpoints, minimums, and maximums to those grades, and that is our final base pay structure. And again, I say this over and over, but we dive deep into all of the methodologies and all of these steps within our certification programs. Now, here I just want to give you a treetop view of a competitive market analysis and how we end up with our traditional base pay structure. So, step one, let's say we decide from a strategic point of view, we want the market data to take the primary emphasis. So, of course, step one, we have to analyze our jobs. What we do is identify what we call our benchmark jobs. Benchmark jobs are common jobs. They're found in many organizations, and these are jobs that you typically see in market surveys. So let's say, and I'm going to keep this example simple, let's say these are our benchmark jobs in our organization. We then go to the market and collect the competitive market rate. Now, what is that competitive market rate? That competitive market rate is directly related to your pay policy. It's very important at the strategic level to establish a pay policy for your organization. You can decide to pay at the median of the market, at the average of the market, or if you are a premium payer, like a handful of my clients are globally, you can pay at the 75th percentile. Now, the majority of companies around the world choose the median as their pay policy. And we get into this discussion in our metrics certification program. The median is the middlemost value in an ordered data set where you have an equal number of data points above it and an equal number of data points below it. The beauty of the median is that it is unaffected by extreme values in your analysis. And that is the main reason why most companies choose the median as their pay policy. They don't want their aggregated pay policy to be skewed either high or low by outliers within their data set. So let's assume that these are median market rates. And you see the jobs here: administrative assistant, 38,005, bookkeeper, 43,900, so on and so forth. Once we are satisfied with our rigor in our market survey analysis, and we get more in depth with how to do a valid market survey analysis, then we are equipped right now to create our base pay structure. I always start at the bottom and I work my way up. So I need to identify the lowest market priced job. And you can see I have it highlighted in bold, and that is the groundskeeper at 32,700. So I establish the midpoint. The midpoint is the anchor to our pay structure. The midpoint needs to represent our pay policy. So again, we're assuming our pay policy is to pay at the median. So we establish our lowest grade. I identified that as grade 3 here at 32,700. So that becomes the midpoint of grade 3. You may be wondering why I have grade 1 and 2 blank. Well, remember, we are analyzing and placing into our structure our benchmark jobs first. We may have some non-benchmark jobs that are lower based on our internal analysis than our groundskeeper, so I want to keep room at the bottom in that grade 1 and 2. After you're done in creating the base pay structure, you may find the groundskeeper is in fact the lowest job in the company, so we would reorient that at grade 1. Then we build our pay structure vertically from that, using standard protocol of midpoint differentials, which again, I get into depth in our programs, as well as our range spreads. So notice our grade 3 with the midpoint of 32,700. A typical midpoint differential at the low end would be 5%. So we increase 32,700 by 5%, and that gives us the midpoint for our grade 4, and that would be 34,335. Now notice our midpoint differentials are fanning up from the lower grade to the higher grade, which is another typical way of creating a base pay structure. After we are satisfied with our midpoint alignment, we then create range spreads for each grade. The range spread is the percent difference between the maximum and the minimum. And what you see in the last column are typical range spreads that you would find in a traditional base pay structure. Now, one big word of advice here. You will never be satisfied the first time that you create this structure. Because remember, we're doing it by midpoint differential protocol as well as the market pricing of all of those jobs above the groundskeeper. Typically, in the real world, I do this about 5, 6, or even 7 times before I'm satisfied with the end result of my midpoint array. Because once you start fiddling around with one midpoint, it's going to have a cascading effect on all of the other midpoints. Now, in a couple of minutes, I have explained what takes days and sometimes months to do. But this would be the end result of your base pay structure. After you do that, then we need to populate the pay structure with our benchmark jobs. And the ruling here is we want to attach and assign the benchmark jobs to the grade where the market pricing is as close to the midpoint as possible. And again, we fleshed this out in great detail. And once again, you're not going to be satisfied the first time you do it, but you can look at this yourself and you can see the array and just see my logic and how I place these jobs within their appropriate grade. Once again, I want to place the benchmark job into the grade where the market price is as close to the appropriate midpoint as possible. Once I place all of my benchmark jobs into my newly created base pay structure, it's time to place my non-benchmark jobs. Non-benchmark jobs can be unique positions you have in your company or jobs that you cannot find in the thumbnail descriptions in the market survey sources. So here I'm just identifying 3 non-benchmark jobs. Senior customer service rep, and you see a short description, the senior mail clerk, and the maintenance assistant. So what I need to do here is make sure I have a good job description for all of my non-benchmark jobs, and I slot them in to the created structure, making sure that the internal equity relationships make sense based on the organizational chart, based on any job families or career pathing that you may have. Just for a quick example, you see the mail clerk is a benchmark job, and I placed that in grade 5 with the midpoint of 36,052. The non-benchmark job is the senior mail clerk. So this should be a no-brainer. Typically, we'll put the senior mail clerk 1 grade above the benchmark mail clerk. So we'll put that senior mail clerk job into grade 6. That's it for base pay structure. I know. I hope this is a lot of information here, and of course, it's not totally complete within the time frame that we have available to us today. Let's move now to variable compensation, and we spend a lot of time in our certification programs in creating our cash plans on the structure and methodology of variable pay. Variable pay is rewarding your employees in lump sum, as opposed to rolling their increases into their base salary. So here I just want to introduce a template that I use all around the world. This is my starting point and how I can include all employees in the organization within the variable environment. we have two objectives here. One is we want to create what we call an esprit de corps, meaning that all employees are in the big boat together and they're all being evaluated on the same general mega metrics. That's objective number one. Objective number two is we want to create line of sight. Line of sight means that I'm going to weight those metrics that are most closely aligned to the jobs that we are evaluating. This is how you motivate your employees, by making sure they're being rewarded in lump sum based on the performance objectives that they have control over. So I'll go over this briefly. First column is the tier. This is how we segment the organization. And just typically, I segmented it based on the hierarchy in the company: officers, directors, managers, professionals, and support people. Next column is the target opportunity. This is the percent of base pay that we're going to pay all employees if all of their goals are achieved at the 100% level. And you can get good intelligence on target opportunities in your typical market surveys that you use. Most good surveys have variable data as well as base pay data. The next column is the range of payout opportunity. Now, of course, this is a variable plan, meaning there's no guarantee there's going to be any payout in lump sum to anyone. They first have to achieve their performance goals. So the array of payment is going to be 0, that's always a possibility, all the way up to 150% of target. So look at the officers. The target opportunity is 35%. 150% of 35% is 52.5%. So this is where we're going to cap out the payout. And the reason why we cap is it's a protection to the organization to make sure we're not giving windfall payments to employees that they have not earned. The last three columns is where we create that direct line of sight. Look at the corporate goals, department goals, and individual goals. If you're an officer, 70% of your 35% target is going to be based on the accomplishment of corporate goals. 20% would be the aggregation of all department goals. Then we have a small percentage for individual goals. Now, notice how these weights shift once we go down the organizational chart. You go down to the support level. 70% of the 8% target for support people is going to be based on their own individual goals. And again, this is how you motivate your employees, by weighting all of the performance metrics based on what is most aligned to each employee's job. Once that is created, and again, that takes a while in order to work out what the target opportunities are, what the weights are going to be for all of the performance goals. But once you're satisfied with that end result, then we take our quantitative goals and we build an array like this. This is very typical of how we compensate salespeople. In fact, we're taking that sales mentality and introducing it into the general workforce population. So let's say one of the corporate metrics, how the company defines success, is net income growth over last year. So we set the target at 12%. If the company reaches that 12% goal, we'll happily pay out 100% of the corporate component in the variable plan. We also build in a downside potential called the threshold. That's when the variable plan kicks in, as well as a maximum, a cap to the plan. So if the company only reaches 9.6% of net income growth, we're going to pay out 50% of whatever the target is, whatever employee we're talking about, in relation to the corporate goals. So this array needs to be created for all of the quantitative metrics that you build into your variable plan. Once you are done with creating your base pay structure and your variable plan, now you have some options on how you're going to define each of these components. I've had a great deal of success in taking performance out of base pay decisions entirely and putting it all into the variable lump sum. This allows you to redefine what you mean by a base pay increase. And typically, I define it as a market adjustment. Employees get this, they understand it, and they embrace it. So they say, okay, my base salary has nothing to do with me. It only has to do with the competitiveness of my job. If I want to get more money out of this company, then I need to achieve all of my performance goals, and I will get a healthy lump sum check at the end of the year. So, one of the big decisions is, of course, how much pay do you want to put at risk in your organization? How much do you want to put in the guarantee of base? How much do you want to put into the variable component? And of course, we expand on all of this in our certification programs. So I'm going to end with this, and that leaves us room to see if you have any questions.
We've got a
These
few.
are what
We've got a few questions. Please
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, just let me go through this quickly here. I'm not going to
Absolutely.
read this whole thing to you, but these are my 10 criteria for success for any variable plan. Okay, Blake.
Okay. First question, is there a training that focuses on variable payout design?
Oh, yes. We have that as a component in our cash compensation development certification program that we're going to do starting the week after March 10th, whatever that Monday date is. I don't have that in front of me.
March
So
17th.
17th. Thank you. So, our first week, starting on March 10th, we're going to be talking about all of the important compensation metrics that you need to know. We have to be well versed in quantitative techniques to do what we do. The week after, starting on March 17th, we are doing the cash compensation development, and a major component of that is the methodology and structure of variable plans.
Okay. Next question. Are there examples of how to create pay progression formulas, meaning how to place an employee into their pay range based on their education, experience, etc.?
We discuss that also within our certification program. Now, of course, these are basically generic examples that I give you, but the construct and the templates I'm going to show you, I believe, will give you enough intelligence to align them more specifically to your company.
Okay. Justin asks, when it comes to pay structure, do you recommend typical numbered grades as you show in the presentation? What do you think of a wider banded grades such as G-A through GG that contains all job titles and pay grades, but organized in different levels with wider grade bands? What are your
I got
thoughts?
you. I got you, Justin. That's a great question. We call that broad banding. Now, the example I gave you is a traditional base pay program. That's what many organizations have in their company. An alternative base pay approach is what you described, and that definition is broad banding, where we collapse our traditional grades, we have wider range spreads, and we reward employees horizontally as opposed to vertically. I just want to plant that seed in your mind. We have a whole hour discussing only broad banding. So I think that would be helpful to you. And again, that begins the week of March 17th.
And for those that are interested in which his John's classes on career learning, I'm just going to give you a link in the chat. And so there it is. And you can see all the things that he's doing for us in the next couple of weeks. And another question is, what are some of the best resources to benchmark jobs in specific industries?
Oh yeah, I always go by the big, what
Industries.
I call the big global survey houses. The examples would be Mercer, Korn Ferry Hay, Aon Hewitt. These are the big survey houses. They're global in nature. They deal with many different industries. You can get special cuts. Now, I'm not selling these organizations, but these are consulting houses and survey houses that I actually use in my consulting practice. There are also what I call boutique salary surveys. One is called Radford. I do a lot of work in the high tech industry. Radford has great resources, market data for high tech jobs. And virtually any discipline that you can think about and any business, there are going to be surveys out there for you. If you're based in the United States or any Western country, there are a plethora of market surveys available. For further information, ask your colleagues or just tap into the internet, and you're going to get a lot of information on different survey sources you can use.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Rita says, I like the way he's explaining this. So that's a very positive comment. Thank you very much, Rita. And thank you very much for joining us. Please join us, John, for classes on March 10th and March 17th. And we have a coupon code called Professional 20 for 20% off if you guys want to come. Anyway, thank you very much, John. This is really great. I appreciate you doing it. Always informative. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great afternoon.
Bye bye, everybody, and thanks so much, Blake. Hope to see you in class. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Yep.